Hey all, Tom here, and welcome back to another video on the Racing Joker channel. Today we are starting a new series. It is called My Cars. And before you ask what it's about, take a moment and just think. Now, you're probably thinking, the title's pretty simple, although rather self-explanatory, but there's actually a reason why I picked it. Not just because it perfectly describes what the series is going to be about. I picked it because in the olden days, with racing games, very famous ones like Need for Speed Underground 2, Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005, Need for Speed Carbon, you always had the option between like a campaign career mode or quick race mode. You know, one had consequences to winning or losing. You had progression you had to fulfill. In quick race mode, you could do stuff for fun, experiment, and things like that. And attached to that was the My Cars section, where you could build cars for fun, see what works, what looks good, and all sorts of other cool stuff. And that's what this series is really going to be about. It's going to be about experimenting, doing stuff with my cars, but it's not super serious. We're gonna hope there aren't any negative consequences, and it's all about just having fun. So hopefully that means it will be easy entertainment for you guys, and you might even learn something cool, and you might expand your minds and figure out what you like about cars. Whether you agree with my tastes or not, you might go, oh gosh, Tom just built a horrible car, or he's got something going there. Maybe he knows he's got some taste or class. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but right. So, to give you guys an idea of what to expect from this series, since it is called My Cars, and I'm the sort of person who likes to personalize cars, I'm going to describe to you the current 3 dream builds I have in my head right now, as well as my top 3 dream cars. And, you know, the 2 lists kind of eclipse a little bit, but there's a car in each one that's exclusive to. Think of it like a Venn diagram. In the center, 2 cars are present in both, but then on the outside, 1 car only exists on the left and 1 car only exists on the right. That was the weirdest way I could have described it, but it made sense in my head. Let's start off with the dream builds. Let's start off with the car I have right now, my 2015 Subaru WRX, which the name is kind of undecided. It's been called the T-Rex, but I know a lot of other people call their Subarus T-Rex, and I can see why. It's a clever name. It makes sense. You could pronounce WRX Rex, but I'm about individuality, mostly just with cars. Otherwise, I just kind of blend into everything in a weird, dominantly jean brown mess. But with cars, you know, down to the last detail, I try to mess with it and make it a little different. So I thought a cool name would be Clever Girl, because one of the names for this generation of Subaru WRX is the Raptor Eye. I mean, obviously a lot of people call it the Evo Eye, but it's not very flattering. I mean, you could say it is. I mean, the Evo 10 was a very nice looking car, but it's not very flattering. So the Raptor Eye, for those of you who haven't seen Jurassic Park 1, watch it. What's wrong with you? And second, it is a line from the movie where like a raptor sneaks up on someone and the guy goes, "Clever girl." Clever girl. And so the car is called a Raptor Eye. We're going to call the car Clever Girl. Maybe. I'm still toying with the idea in my head. But I want to talk about what I want to do with the car beyond the name, because that's kind of like, that's not physical. It's more spiritual or mental. Currently, not much has really been done to the car. I replaced the fog light bezels with Subi Speed ones because I drove into I think a storm drain, messed up the bumper. Well, not really messed up the bumper, but popped out one of the bezels, and apparently it was still attached to the car for a little while, and then it fell out in a parking lot at the store I was working at the time, and then I got run over a few times and was split in half. Or it could have been split in half when I crashed into the storm drain. I didn't really know about the damage I had done. I just heard a crunch, was really embarrassed, drove away from my girlfriend's house thinking, now that's how you make an exit. Although that's not the noise I wanted to make. I wanted to go vroom, but oh well. Beyond that, I wouldn't necessarily call this a modification, but it's the tires. You know, you have to change tires no matter what happens, so I don't really call it a modification. But I have Michelin, I have to read it. I have Michelin Pilot Sport All Season Plus 3s. I'll be honest, tires are probably one of the most important things to buy for a car, because it's the stuff that connects you to the ground. And I've got to say, compared to the tires that the car started with, I can't remember what they were, but I've driven a 2016 BMW 340i X-Drive with, I want to say either Michelin's, Pirelli's, or something along those lines. Really nice tires. And when the Michelins were put onto the Subaru, it felt just like the BMW. It felt like a $60,000 car. It was such a huge difference. It gripped better. The tires didn't spin as much when it was launched. It's invest in good tires. Invest in good tires. And plus, these tires have lasted for forever. They handle like they did when they were new. Probably. I mean, take that statement with a grain of salt, because my memory might not be what I think it is. But the tires are still great. Don't overestimate them, though, when you're driving in the snow, because I almost did that, and it almost wasn't pretty. I'll tell you about that another time. Future things I want to do to the Subaru. I'm taking forever to do this, to get to this point, but I currently have a Greddy Type S blow-off valve. I'll go and get it. That was the chair. Here we go. This is a discontinued part. I got it off of eBay. It wasn't that expensive. It might not be in perfectly pristine condition, but I don't really care. It'll probably work just fine. This is a Greddy, I think that's how you pronounce it, a Greddy Type S blow-off valve. And I want to install this on the WRX. The reason why, I'm sure a lot of you have seen The Fast and the Furious, and listened to Brian's Eclipse.
I'm gonna win.
You know, you recognize that sound. It's pretty iconic. It came from one of these, you know. The Greddy Type S makes that whistling sound. A very distinct sound, even for a blow-off valve. Though please note, in real life, the Eclipse wasn't even turbocharged, and it obviously, of course, because it wasn't, it didn't have the blow-off valve. But the car that they used the sound for did, which I think was like a supercharged CRV or something like that. But I'm going to use that on the car. It's a little tricky to get installed. I'll talk about it in the first episode of the series. This is more like an episode 0, introduce myself, pilot before the pilot. But yeah, so first thing I want to do to the car is put that on. To make it sound a little bit more unique and have a very distinct, and to me, retro noise, you know, from early 2000s, late 90s, or whenever that started being made. I have no idea. After that, we've got a lot of very basic Subaru WRX mods, you know, Cobb access port, big SF intake, Tomei single exit exhaust, Grimspeed catted J pipe, a stage 2 tune, compatible with all of that, which should be good for 315 to 320-ish horsepower, something like that, over 300, more than the stock STI, which is more than enough for the WRX, because the WRX needs to stay reliable and a daily, you know. After that, Cosmetically, a wrap color change would be nice. That would be pretty cool. My favorite color is purple, so I was considering going with 3M 1080 GP278 Gloss Flip Deep Space. Let's just go with Gloss Flip Deep Space. If I had to say that whole thing every single time I referred to it, I'd probably lose my mind. Oh, and obviously before I do the wrap, I also want to install a 2018 facelift WRX front bumper. Beyond that, a Type RA wing. You know, a lot of people put STI wings on WRXs, and I considered doing that at one point. I even ordered one, but then I had to cancel the order because I was moving. But that gave me time to kind of rethink, and I decided to be a little more unique and go with the Type RA wing because it exists and it's cool, and it's not too over the top. It's not too big wang gang, so that's good. However, if you are concerned with me being a ricer, this is where I confirm your suspicions. I am going to put LEDs underneath the car and in the interior, and it is going to be obnoxious as hell. So be warned. Though it will, since the car is going to be purple, and since I call myself the Racing Joker, the lights are going to be green, so at least you get to know that the lights can't be on when the car is moving, at least in most states. I think in some states the only colors that are restricted are red or blue, and they definitely can't ever be flashing no matter what color it is, but in a lot of states it's restricted to only white, and it has to be a solid color. And maybe even some states you can't even have extra lights. I'm not sure. It might even depend on the vehicle. No idea. Haven't done the research on the entire country because that would be unnecessary. After that, you know, I mean, this build isn't at the top of my priority list because I've got two other builds that I'm way more excited about, and I don't even have the cars yet. They're more exciting. You'll understand why when I tell you about them. And since this is a daily, I don't want to be too eager to rip the car apart anyways, because it needs to be reliable and take me to work. It can look cool and be somewhat faster than stock without breaking, hopefully. But let's say I wanted to go big power. Well, I'd have to change all sorts of things, fuel system, clutch, and stuff like that, you know. But with stuff like suspension, I'd go with, I don't know, Fortunato out of, I think, Virginia. Killer Bee headers with an external wastegate. I think you need to have a straight pipe exhaust for that. I'm not sure. I heard someone say that at one point. Don't know if they were a reliable individual. It was either on a forum or in a YouTube comment thread. Take that as what you will. ETS titanium intercooler kit and ETS turbo kit. That would be good for 400 to 430 wheel horsepower. Don't need to upgrade internals. Don't need to do anything like that. And as long as you don't abuse the car all the time and just drive it normally every day, it should be perfectly fine. That's what the guys at ETS told me about their kit. You know, they have a car with the kit on it with the smallest turbo option. It made 420 wheel horsepower, and it works just fine. Hasn't had any real problems, so that's cool. But, as I said, the WRX is the lowest priority build, so that means it will be the slowest to be completed, and probably the last to be completed. Well, it won't be the first, because I will be saving money for other things. And so, one of those things, I'll just start with the car build that is at the top of my priority list of all time. I want to build a BMW M3 E46 GTR homage car or replica. That means taking an E46 M3, because while even if I do have the option, if any of them are still around, to get an original GTR, they're technically not GTRs, but the same kind of chassis. If I were to get an official BMW Motorsport chassis, it might be cheaper because they go for $7,000 to $10,000, but there's nothing in them. And I know nothing about how any of that works, and I'd like to be able to just drive this car on the street anyway, so having it start with more stuff and starts as a real road car will probably make it a lot easier to keep it registered for the street. But anyways, the car will start in life as an E46 M3, year 2001 to 2006. One of the first things that I should mention on the inside is the powertrain swap. We'll be taking a 4-liter V8 out of the E92 M3, which is the S65. The dream would be to get a VF Engineering supercharger kit. Those are good for 575 wheel horsepower at only 8 pounds of boost. Other things that will be done to the engine is I will source official BMW M3 GT2 engine parts such as flat plane crankshaft, pistons, rods, cams, simple stuff like that. It'll be like a race conversion of a street engine so that it's not woefully incompatible with the car. I almost said uncompatible, which I think actually is a word now that I think about it. Is uncompatible. Citation needed. But you get the idea. S65 supercharged M3 GT2 or Z4 GT3 parts, you know, because both of those cars use the racing version of the S65. The GT2 had a 4-liter version with a flat plane crankshaft. The Z4 had a 4.4-liter version. Generally the same, more or less. Can transplant a lot of parts out of that engine into the S65. No worries there. It'll be a lot cheaper than buying an actual racing engine, which is like 60 to 100,000 euros, whatever that is in US dollars. Connected to the engine is a very cool transmission. The dream for me is a Hollinger sequential, probably an RD6. It will be flat foot shifting as well as auto rev matching, which will basically mean I will only need the clutch for starting and stopping and also launching. But for upshifts, don't need to go near the clutch. It'll just cut the engine timing and not cut the fuel. Good throttle response, super fast shifts, and we get the added bonus of shooting fire out the exhaust with every gear shift. If I'm giving it the beans, for lack of a better term, if I'm accelerating enthusiastically. And then, of course, hopefully, the way the engine's modified, the engine will be able to rev up really quickly, which will make the auto rev matching much faster and more efficient. And so when I downshift, because one of the things with me is I love 6-speed manuals, I love rev matching, and I love heel and toe, but on a road course, I'd rather not be fumbling for all the different pedals when I'm going through a corner and then buck the car and upset the car's balance. So with the auto rev matching in the sequential, I can downshift before a corner or even in the middle of a corner and be fine. I feel like it's justified. It's still like a hybrid of a manual, but with the benefits of a paddle shifter. And I think that's pretty cool. The original E46 GTR had similar technology. I can talk about that in like another video, I guess. The interior, well, there won't be one. Back seats will be gone. Lots of panels will be, lining panels will be gone. It'll be as light as possible. There'll still be like a dash, racing heads-up display, everything, all the dials and bits and bobs that tell me how the car is doing and how it's being fast and cool and awesome. All that good stuff. I feel like the goal weight for the car will be between 2,600 and 2,800 pounds, which is pretty good for nearly 600 wheel horsepower. I'm hoping that should be good for a 0 to 60 of 3 seconds, maybe less. That'd be nice, especially on track tires. That'd probably be blisteringly fast. On the outside, you've got an E46 M3 GT2 wide body kit. An amazing kit, very expensive, but this car is already going to be, so might as well invest in a really nice exterior with quality parts. And so that PTG kit will be the best of the best. It'll be perfect for the car. It'll look fantastic. I'm thinking either SSR wheels or BBS wheels. The original GTR had BBS wheels, in case you didn't know. You've got the side exhaust, which tunnels through the floor. And so in order for that to exist without compromising the stability of the chassis, you have to have a welded roll cage system to reinforce the whole thing, which helps with handling and other stuff like that. And eliminates a lot of other anxieties you might have about the well-being of the car. But it also allows for the exhaust to exist without causing problems. And plus, because the exhaust tunnels through the floor and not hangs underneath the car, you can have the car low down, but not have like the exhaust limiting your ability to have a good ground clearance. So that's the very basics of the build. But I'm not going to say any more, because I don't really want to waste an hour of your life talking about a car that doesn't exist yet. Probably wouldn't go over well with most people. But up next is a car everyone expects me to build, an R34 GTR. Specifically, the dream is to build a 2002 M-Spec NER. Pretty rare car. There are even less of them out there now, either because of wrecks or what have you, impounds, crushing, people importing them into the US when they really shouldn't. The reason why I want the car is because M in the M-Spec stands for Mizuno, and Mizuno was the chief engineer at Nissan, and he's one of the primary people we should be thanking for this car, and I think it'd be cool to have his name on the car. For whatever reason, that just appeals to me. It's super awesome, and yeah. However, I will say that if and when I do get one, I hope it's not in a really rare and famous color like Silica Breath or Millennium Jade, because I am going to rip the car apart, rebuild it, repaint it, and change almost the entire spirit of it, essentially. It will not look the same, it will sound different, it will be much faster, and I'll tell you why. So let's start with the turbo setup, because I've been constantly researching that for the past few months, almost a year maybe. Obviously, I want to go big single because they sound great. That's just my taste. I prefer big single. What turbos do I want? Well, it depends on what kind of build I want to do. 700 horsepower, awesome, fast street show car, HKS T04Z, HKS T51R, you've got the Greddy Trust T88 34D. All those are great turbos, sound great, lots of support for them. The T51R and the T04Z are discontinued, but I'm sure I'd be able to find one. The annoying part might be finding a good exhaust manifold. If I want to build a car faster than that, I could go down the Gemmo 34 route and get a Precision 8285 and make 1300 horsepower to the wheels, which would be, well, frankly, awesome, and it would be fast, and no one would try to race me, which, would probably feel pretty cool. But it would sound different, and it would drive different, and I'd probably have to have a sequential, because obviously that's going to be an RB30 stroked, built, billet, all sorts of ridiculousness. No matter how good of a driver I'm going to be by that time, sequential. I am not money shifting a $30,000, $40,000 RB engine. Or more. It could cost more. I have no idea. But yeah, both setups ideally would be RB30, but like the high horsepower one is more likely to be an RB30 for obvious reasons. But because it's a NER-spec GTR, it comes with the N1 block, so I could keep it with just that, do a 2.8 liter step 2 stroker kit with 272 cams from HKS, and just have one of the HKS turbos and I probably won't be able to find an HKS manifold unless if they start making them again, which would be great. I don't know why they discontinued that and then continued to make more single turbos. That confused the heck out of me. But, you know, I've been really toying with the idea of going with a T04Z lately. And you can probably guess why. It sounds awesome. So, yeah. And 700 horsepower is no slouch, nothing to laugh at. It might not be faster than 1,000 horsepower Lambos, Supras, or anything like that. But in the area where I live or could end up living, I'm probably not going to see many of those. But at the same time, I feel like the M3 might be faster anyways. And even if it isn't, it would be a lot easier to make that faster, and then I don't have to sacrifice the style of the Skyline. But I don't know. I have lots of time to figure it out, but these are the questions I ask myself every 5 minutes of every day. Planning cars that don't exist and are well out of my price range. We all do it. I'm a car guy. It's in my blood. But now, finally, moving on to the exterior. A C-West N1 style kit for the BNR 34 chassis. Don't see them that much anymore. I don't know why. But, you know, of course, Street Racing Syndicate, SRS, and I think in one of the Forza Horizon games. It's one of my favorite kits of all time for the car. So, obviously it's going on. And the color is going to be Midnight Purple 3. You know, that's why I would hope that the car would be like white or black. Because I don't want to paint over a legendary color like Silica Breath and make it Midnight Purple 3, which is a nice color, but I'm not going to paint over original Silica Breath paint. You'd have to pay me 6 figures to make me do that. 6 figures. And then I'd have to be given all sorts of other things. The power to walk on water. I don't know. That might not even be enough, because I'd never do it, because I don't live near any oceans. Cut to me standing on water, like I've filled the bathtub with water, and I'm just standing on it going, "This is the extent of my power. Do not challenge me." That's an image. But yes, COS body kit, Midnight Purple 3 paint job. I think that would look fantastic. And of course, I have it right here. I have a replacement M-Spec NUR badge, because the M-Spec NUR badge and V-Spec badges and other things like that are all on the back bumper of the car. Now, unlike the Nismo kits, you know, the lip kits and things like that, they just attach to the rear bumper, as far as I can tell. You don't replace the whole bumper. But the moment you take off the whole bumper, the badge is gone. So when I put the COS kit on, you know, the M-Spec NUR badge is going to be gone. And the whole point of getting an M-Spec NUR is to have the M-Spec NUR badge. Pretty much, because M stands for Mizuno. But don't worry, I got that covered. Mizuno, I will be paying tribute to you with the car no matter what. And yeah, so we got that base covered. Paying respect to Mizuno himself. Excuse me while I struggle with packaging. Story of my life. I got this from RHD Japan a while ago. I thought it would just be cool to have it, you know, as like a time capsule, you know, to remind myself this is meant to go on a car, you know, a car that deserves it. So it can't just go on anything. I'm not going to be one of those people that puts AMG badges on BMWs or something. Ugh. As for the exhaust, I have no idea. HKS? I wish the Trust Titanium exhaust was still around, but it's not. So I'll have to get back to you on that, because I'm also trying to figure out straight piped, catted. Catless would be probably more annoying to register because of emissions, but I could run 2 maps, one that can pass the emissions and one that obviously doesn't. because obviously it's a Skyline. It would be really cool to be able to make lots of power and also shoot flames, because while it's a fast car, it's a guilty pleasure car. It needs to be able to do things that you just can't justify, even in the car world. It just needs to be silly, ridiculous, crazy. Suits me, right? So, those are the two big dream builds I want to do. E46 M3 GTR and 700 horsepower, 1300 horsepower R34. So, as you can probably guess, out of the 3 dream cars that I want, not dream builds, dream cars, the E46 M3 and the Skyline GTR are 2 of them. And because I have a WRX already, the WRX is not a third, but it is the third, dream build, the dream daily. So what is the dream car? What is the last one on the list? What could it be? Well, let me put it this way. It's more impressive and advanced than anything I could ever build, no matter what budget I have, simply because I wouldn't know where to find the technology. And that being said, it is also well without of most people's price ranges, including the wealthy. It's called the McLaren P1. Back in high school, or maybe it was just after I graduated and started going to college, or in between, or something like that. It's a little unclear. But at one point in time, within that time period, I was on a plane. One of the many times I've been on a plane. And I was watching TV shows on the back of the passenger's head in front of me. And it was an episode of Top Gear. It was like the 21st or 22nd series. And it was Jeremy Clarkson's first ever review of the McLaren P1. And after watching that, seeing how it looked, hearing about the technology, seeing how fast it was, hearing it, I fell in love with it. And it was the first supercar, or maybe it's a hypercar, the first $1 million car I ever fell in love with. I've never been a big fan of, I've never really coveted Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Koenigsegg's, Paganis, or anything like that. I've always respected them and think they're cool, but when I saw the P1, I went, oh my God, I need to be a millionaire. I need that. That is a masterpiece. But I'm still working on what it takes to actually get to the point where I can buy one. But when I figure it out, I'll let you guys know. I got you. If I figure it out, you guys will be the first to know. Because I'm probably just as eager as you. Now, moving on. These aren't dream cars, but these are cars I really like and would definitely not say no to. Just to kind of expand your perspective and give you a better idea of what my tastes are. It's like a personality test. To better understand me, you keep asking me questions and figuring out what I like and dislike. So I'm going to keep telling you what I like. I haven't told you anything about what I dislike. Ford Mustang GT350R and the new GT500. That looks pretty nice. I didn't think they'd be able to make the new body style look good, but they did. Again, somehow. Don't tell Clever Girl this, but the Mitsubishi Evo FQ400, the R32 GTR with a Doloc body kit and a discontinued veil side wing, the A80 Supra, the new Jaguar Project 8, the XESV. I've never been someone that's really liked Jaguars that much, but that is a nice car. The Alfa Romeo I think you have to have a stroke in order to say this car's name correctly. Alfa Romeo Quadrifoglio. Kind of works. Maybe if I ever get one, we could call it the Stroker. Now, actually, I see some problems with that. Maybe not. Old fastback 65 Mustangs. Don't really care what the powertrain is. I'd probably swap it anyways with something a bit more modern. 1970 RT Dodge Charger. The RX-7, I'd probably 2J swap it. 1999 to 2000 Honda Civics, because Underground 2. Lotus Exige S 260. I don't think it was ever sold in the US, but that's probably the best looking Lotus there is, in my opinion. This is just to give you guys an idea of what I like beyond my dream cars and builds. But that's all for me. This episode is basically episode 0, the pilot before the pilot, where I introduce myself to you guys before we actually start doing stuff with my cars. I talk about myself and a little bit about my cars and cars I want to have as my cars. And before I say my cars again, that's it from me. It took me a while to actually record this. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys are excited. I'm excited. I'm going to enjoy documenting all this. I think it will be a very fun and rewarding series for me to do because I'll be able to look back and see where I started and then go, started from the bottom, now we're here. Might not be so satisfying if I do it a week from now. But progress is progress. Next episode, I'm going to be doing stuff with the WRX. I'm going to be researching stuff to do with how to get this darn thing to work. I'll talk about that in greater detail this weekend. I'll record it and hopefully get it uploaded on Monday, maybe, or Sunday. We'll see. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I am Tom, the Racing Joker, and I am signing out. See you guys next time. And most importantly, stay crazy.